Hey there, I'm going to go by June for this letter. It's actually my middle name and hardly anyone knows me by it. Consider it my pen name for the sake of your listeners. I know my story might sound a little odd, but I believe your viewers might find it intriguing. 10 years back, I bid farewell to the hustle and bustle of Los Angeles and headed for rural Oregon. I needed a break from the city grind. Just me, a single woman in her mid-50s seeking solace. Ever since my teenage years, I've been haunted by these unsettling nightmares. It's like I'm snatched from my bed by strange beings, subjected to terrifying examinations. I'm always paralyzed in these dreams, helpless to fight back. They faded away in my early 20s, only to resurface in my late 40s. My therapist diagnosed me with PTSD, a result of the turbulent childhood I endured. My parents' bitter divorce, the relentless bullying at school, and the weight of failed relationships. It all took its toll on me. Settling down in Oregon marked a fresh chapter in my life. I snagged a spacious plot of land just a mile outside town, nestled amidst serene woods. It's a picturesque community, a haven of tranquility. I was starting anew. Leaving behind my thriving beauty salon in LA, I launched a new venture in my newfound hometown. Things seemed to fall into place smoothly. My house, an elegant old structure, underwent a makeover, adding to the charm of my new life. Initially, the nightmares faded into the background. Life felt less burdensome. Yet 2 years in, the dreams returned with a vengeance. Doubts crept in. Was this fresh start fueling its own anxieties? The nightmares grew more frequent, more vivid. Desperate for answers, I turned to a local psychologist, but her explanations felt like rehearsed lines, lifelong therapy for childhood trauma. It didn't add up. How could my parents' issues manifest as encounters with unearthly beings? It seemed far-fetched. Feeling like I needed a change, I decided to explore a different avenue. There was talk of a hypnotherapist in town, and I figured, why not give it a shot? It was uncharted territory for me, but I was willing to try anything at that point. So, I agreed to a regression session. Let me tell you, what unfolded during those sessions was beyond anything I could have imagined. It's hard to put into words, really. I know it might sound outlandish, but bear with me. Under hypnosis, I unearthed memories of being abducted by aliens since I was just a kid. Yeah, you heard that right. Abducted by extraterrestrial beings. They'd whisk me away to their craft and subject me to all sorts of unsettling examinations and experiments. It was downright agonizing. The hypnotherapist urged me to embrace whatever emerged during these sessions, to not question it but to explore it. And each time I delved deeper, more details surfaced. It was like peeling back layers of a nightmare I'd buried deep within my subconscious. Needless to say, it took a toll on me. I felt like I was spiraling into a crisis. So I upped my sessions, seeing him twice a week for 2 weeks in a row. And just when I thought things couldn't get any stranger, they did. It was a typical weeknight, not particularly chilly, but the rain outside added an eerie touch to the darkness. I was just about ready to hit the hay when there came a knock at the front door. Odd, I thought to myself. Peeking through the peephole, I saw no one. Weird, right? As I turned to walk away, there came another knock. Now, our neighborhood's pretty tight-knit, so I figured it must be some neighborly shenanigans. The local teenagers sometimes get up to harmless mischief. I crept back to the door, aiming to unlock it as quietly as possible. My plan? To catch whoever it was in the act and play along with their little game. I mean, why not inject a bit of humor into the situation, right? But when I flung open the door, I was met with quite the sight. Before me stood a man in the crispest white suit I'd ever laid eyes on. It wasn't your ordinary suit, though. It had that Nehru style, with the closed-up collar and no tie. But there was something peculiar about it, like a modern take on the classic. It lacked buttons but was impeccably closed in front. And the man himself, well, he was a towering figure, easily reaching 7 feet tall. His hair was the lightest shade of blonde, his eyes a piercing blue. He practically radiated with an otherworldly presence, if you catch my drift. Now, I'm not one to open my door to strangers, mind you. Nobody ever showed up here unannounced before, but there I was, standing face to face with this peculiar fella, and something about him just calmed my nerves right down. His lips didn't even twitch, but I swear I heard a voice in my head saying, "You have nothing to fear, I am here to help." Strange, huh? Against my better judgment, I went ahead and invited him inside. Looking back, I can't believe I did that. He made his way into the foyer while I locked the door out of pure habit, leaving the key dangling in the lock. My house layout's a bit peculiar, with the lounge off to the left as you enter. I was expecting him to follow me, but he just stood there, staring at me with those piercing eyes. "I am here to help," he repeated, and it clicked. I knew exactly what he meant. This time his words were spoken out loud in English, albeit with a strange accent. It reminded me a little bit of this Persian hairstylist I once knew in LA, how that fella spoke. Yet he sure did not look like he was from those parts. Unusually tall, fair-skinned, with a presence that radiated a feeling of caring. I just stood there, not uttering a word as he continued on. "They have not paid you a visit since your youth. Mark the moment, for they are coming back. A year from now, they will return." My heart sank. He was talking about my abductors. Then he revealed more in a style that seemed as strange as his appearance. It sounded almost like riddles. I have the words etched into my memory. "You need 2 guardians, creatures of the sort called dogs," he said, his voice serious. Then he carried on. "2 shepherds have a bond. The ones who haunt you cannot pacify those joined in strength. Your village has a shelter for these creatures. 2 are waiting for you. Go tomorrow and bring them home. You have 1 year. Bring your heart to theirs. They must sleep in your room." A quick message from our channel. Your support is vital for our success. By subscribing and hitting the like button, you help us continue bringing you these eerie stories. Your ongoing support means everything to us. Now let's jump back into June's captivating tale. And then he hit me with this. "If the shepherds succumb, turn to prayer. The gray ones will not stand against the call to the higher one." Prayer, I thought. I hadn't practiced religion in decades. But in that moment, his words resonated with me, despite their strangeness. Desperate for answers, I blurted out, "Who are they? Why are they doing this to me?" His response was cryptic. "Explanations cannot do. Nothing you can understand. Their goal is not to harm, but causing terror or not does not concern them. Their manner is the problem." "Why are you helping me?" I fired back. His answer was simple yet profound. "You and I have a connection. They cause too much terror. I am helping you." Before I could inquire further, he said in a gentle, almost childlike tone, "I am thirsty." Realizing I hadn't offered him anything, I hurried off to the kitchen to fetch a glass of water. To my utter surprise, when I returned to the foyer, he was gone. Nowhere in sight, not even in the lounge. I searched the entire house, top to bottom, but there was no trace of him. The front door was still locked, just as I'd left it. And I didn't hear a single creak, not even from the patio doors, which were also locked from the inside. It was a perplexing mystery. He had simply vanished into thin air. Feeling uneasy, I eventually went to bed. The next morning, I called my second-in-command, telling her to take charge of the shop. I wasn't going in. Instead, I headed straight to the local animal shelter. And wouldn't you know it, there they were, just like he said. Two shepherds with a bond. It was a German shepherd and one of her pups who was already 2 years old. Their previous owner had recently passed away, leaving the loyal companions in need of a new home. Without a moment's hesitation, I knew what I had to do. I adopted both of them on the spot, determined to give them the love and care they deserved. Over the following year, I formed a deep bond with these two dogs, Venus and Rex. I spent nearly all my free time with them. They became my constant companions, sleeping by my side every night. I grew incredibly attached to them. I even splurged on an SUV so they could join me on my adventures. We became a family. In addition to my newfound canine companions, I found myself reconnecting with my religious roots. I started praying again, engaging in heartfelt conversations with the Lord. It was my way of reaffirming my faith. It had been about a year since my strange visitor made his presence known. One night, I was jolted awake by a sharp flash of light from outside. Both dogs were on high alert, their senses keenly attuned to something amiss. As my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I noticed Rex's bared teeth as he growled menacingly, a primal warning to any intruders. My bedroom door was slightly open, granting me a view down the hallway from where I lay in bed. An unsettling sense of approaching danger tingled in the air, sending shivers down my spine. Swiftly, I sat up, my heart pounding in my chest as I fixed my gaze down the corridor. Soon enough, my eyes locked onto what seemed 5 or more looming figures. They stood short in stature, around 4 feet tall, their heads disproportionately large, with large black eyes staring at me and the dogs. My breath caught in my throat as I recognized them from my recurring nightmares, their presence casting an ominous shadow. Dread consumed me as I perceived them not merely as strange visitors, but as an evil threat from the depths of my darkest fears. Fear clawed at my mind, imagining the malevolent deeds they might inflict upon me. Without hesitation, Rex bolted into the hallway, his fur bristling along his back, emphasizing his formidable presence. With a fierce bark and menacing growl, he confronted them. Despite maintaining a cautious distance, he seemed poised to strike. The intruders froze in response, uncertain of their next move. My dread and anxiety intensified as I watched the tense standoff unfold before me, paralyzed by fear and uncertainty. Meanwhile, Venus positioned herself between me and the door, her gaze alternating between the hallway and me, ensuring my safety while remaining ready to spring into action at a moment's notice. Her muscles tensed, ready to defend me against any threat that dared to come too close. As Rex stood his ground, she emitted low, guttural growls, echoing his warning to the intruders. The air crackled with tension as the standoff unfolded. The figures hesitated, uncertain of how to proceed in the face of Rex and Venus's fierce defense. Despite their apparent intent, they remained frozen in place, their advance halted by the fearless determination of my loyal companions. Desperate for help, I reached for my mobile only to find it lifeless in my hand. I tried to switch on my bedside lamp, but it too was dead. In my terror, I realized I couldn't wait for the figures to approach Rex and Venus. I began reciting the Lord's Prayer, but halfway through, I found myself simply talking to my Creator, saying, "Look, you and I have become very close. Now is the time I need your help." I said it aloud, holding my hands together in prayer, while I stared intently at the figures down the hallway. Then something incredibly strange and amazing happened. I watched as they walked backwards, retreating from the hallway into the foyer, until they vanished from sight. The dogs ceased their barking. Rex emitted a few more growls, then fell silent. Suddenly, there were two flashes of light from outside, and the next moment, my bedside lamp and mobile phone turned on. I realized I had left them switched on when I tried them earlier, even though they had no power. The dogs still seemed a bit startled, but they were no longer barking or growling. I called the cops. When they arrived, I simply told them there is an intruder. They searched the entire house but found nothing and nobody. There was only me and the dogs. It's been 5 years since that incident. I haven't had any visitations from the abductors or the strange tall white man again. Venus is getting on, and Rex is now 7 years old. Recently, I also adopted 2 Rottweiler puppies, a brother and sister. It's kind of funny, but these days my house is like a kennel. I don't think I'll ever be without dogs again. Anyway, that's my absurd story, and you probably think I'm crazy. But believe me, it really happened. Either that or I am totally crazy. Sincerely, June. Thanks for watching. If you value June's story, please give a thumbs up and leave a comment below. Please support our young channel by subscribing. Your support helps to source more stories of strange and eerie encounters.